thanks to the recession, what has seen a very significant global downturn, that certain emerging economies of Asia, India, China, Korea, who have in a way salvaged this sinking of the developed economies. Because what happened was, the funds which were captured in the developed economies and were just getting dissipated because the banking and the other financial markets have collapsed literally, they needed outlet for the transfer of these funds, for the capital flows, and you had markets like India to absorb the flows of capital, services, and thus, while Indian market grows, its potential is yet to be tapped. Now, my colleague Mr. Bharadwaj has prepared some snapshots of the Indian economy. I'll quickly run it. I don't want to spend more time except to make this point how Indian economy is growing today. You will see that the per capita income, this is the second slide, second one. The per capita income has grown by 24% to US 1,176 in the current year. And for a population of 1.2 billion, multiplied by that number, you come to about 1.4 trillion GDP economy. India's GDP is estimated to expand by 9.2% this year, as compared to the growth of 7.4% in 2009-10. In 2010, I think 1 year is missing here. This current year, the current year 10-11, we are, I think our average growth is about 8.5, and then this 9 plus. All forecasts are that we will get on to this 9% for the next year, 11-12. And thereafter, within a year or so, we are going to have a double-digit growth, which as per forecast will stay for a very long time, making India the fastest growing economy in the world. Okay, just a few figures. Our forex reserves by the end of December 2010 had been to 295 billion US, which has increased by about 11.13 over last year. India's net capital inflows increased to 50 billion 2009-10, which included 37 billion turnaround in portfolio equity flows. Here see, most of these capital flows have come into equity market, in financial market. It's a very buoyant market now, so more of our investment is now portfolio investment, which is happening in the share market, as you say. In November 2010, exports increased 22.3 year on year to 18.46, and here you will see that our estimated exports for 2010 stand at 210 billion. Yet we have a trade deficit of about 100 billion. So now our total trade, global trade, is the order of about 500 billion, about let's say 1.5% of total global trade, India's. Not much, but we are increasing. Okay, some basic economic indicators. GDP as of last year was 1.37 trillion. Growth rate last quarter 8.8. Inflation, excluding food inflation. I'm sorry, we ought to have prepared a food inflation, but inflation is the median inflation now, 8.3. But we've had a very seasonal food inflation in India, which is driving a lot of poor people out of their livelihoods. It's very terrible inflation now. Forex reserves we have seen. FDI for this period only, July-September 2010, you had 5.2 billion. Then the value of exports for that period, April-September, is 103.65, so that comes to about that. Now, a little idea about our bilateral because since we are all in Trinidad and Tobago, we must talk a little bit about the bilateral part. Trade has been one of the positive elements in our relationship. We had a good trade, our bilateral trade exceeded 400 million between India and Trinidad and Tobago, with 300 million plus from Indian side and about 110 from Trinidad side. But that fell to about half last year because of unfortunate economic recession, where you had a slump here overall. Your manufacturing sector shrank, your demand came down, you had a shortfall in your exports. So that reflected also in your overall trade figures with India. But we feel that this year will be much better, and all forecasts say that your growth will be something like 2% average. If your growth is 2% and our growth is 9%, we are sure to match our trade back to where we stood in 2008-9 and perhaps more. Because now there's a lot of diversification also is happening in many sectors. We have moved beyond the conventional sectors into many other sectors. We are looking at various sectors. This is something which I wanted to show you. This is called Bilateral Investment Promotion and Protection Agreement, BIPA, which was signed in March 2007 when then Trade Minister visited India and he signed it. Here it says that the agreement aims to encourage and create favorable conditions for investors of both countries to make investments in each other's territory. It is now a framework. Then it says full protection and security of all investments and returns on investment by investors of both countries. In other words, you can invest in India and get full protection on your investment. And because of this, and before that there has been a double taxation avoidance agreement. So if, in other words, the company paid tax here and went to India and invested in India, it will not pay tax in India. You have that cover also. Article 4 is very important, where it says both countries shall accord most favored nation treatment to investment or returns of investments of both the countries, which shall not be less favorable than that accorded either to investments or return on investments of any third state. In other words, it builds a kind of a PTA relationship between India and Trinidad and Tobago. Not many people in Trinidad know that, and I wish more and more people knew that. I wish the policymakers in Trinidad and Tobago knew that. I wish the government of Trinidad and Tobago knew that, because the government itself has signed this agreement, which gives most favored nation treatment to each other, which is something like a preferential trade agreement between our two countries. So it says that you cannot get less favorable treatment to any other agreement you have signed with a third country. For example, if you have signed an agreement with Costa Rica or with Colombia or with Brazil or with US, and you trade with India, you will not get any unfavorable terms to an Indian product as you get with these countries with whom you have signed. So these are the frameworks which are there, and they have to be made good use of. I will just rush you through this Advantage India, what we call Why India. 60 years old democratic setup, legal framework, strong financial markets, large pool of young, skilled, English-speaking manpower. By the way, India is the largest English-speaking country in the world. Don't be surprised. Largest pool of technical manpower, cost-effective production facilities, large domestic market, 500 million strong middle class, progressive opening of the economy to FDI. FDI has still not come in a big way, and some areas are still kind of sheltered, like retail, like mining, banking to some extent. So these are some areas which have to be looked at by the government from our side. Investor-friendly policies. Well, we have a direct route of investment. There is this DIPP. I will show you the website through which you can pass and invest. I'm sorry, I'm giving a little more economic this thing because what you're talking about, this India growth story, the famous growth story is based on these kind of factors. Good R&D network, but R&D is hardly 2%, not even 2% in the current plan, which we want to increase it to a little more. Economic and political stability, which is there. And liberal policy on technology collaboration. That's why you find in India today, almost all the global companies are there who have made India not a market alone for their products, but from India to launch their products to all other countries in the rest of the world because of this, all these factors. You have very cost competitive and skilled manpower there. So you have seen that now India has become a global manufacturing hub, with a large number of companies shifting their manufacturing base to India. India has the largest number of companies outside of Japan that have been recognized for excellence in quality. I will tell you a very curious thing. Pharmaceuticals. Some days back you may have read in Africa there were some exports, pharma exports to Africa which were defective in quality and they were said made in India and then India of course lodged a complaint with WTO, and there was some research we went on which found that the origin of this pharma were not in India but in China. So there is a kind of a conflict situation going along. How do you market your products? How do you balance your quality with your cost? And how do you get into more and more new markets for Indian products? Agriculture, I will talk. We recently had an expert on horticulture here. I think one sector which largely needs to be developed in Trinidad and Tobago is agriculture. And I have maintained that always that your agriculture sector needs a lot more push from all sections. Why government alone, but all sections. India's agriculture used to be our stronghold. Long before services came and swept everything away. Now services sector is 65% of India's economic GDP, whereas agriculture has fallen to 15%, while 55% of our workforce directly or indirectly depend on agriculture as a source of livelihood. The growth of agriculture unfortunately hasn't been too encouraging because of very many reasons. Our agriculture holdings has been getting squeezed. Not all parts of the country have got mechanized agriculture. The small farmers are having problem in retaining their small holdings. The green revolution which we got in the late 60s and 70s, that was thanks to a pioneering work of Dr. M.S. Swaminathan and his team who basically worked on high-yield variety seed in cereals, in wheat and rice and pulses thereafter. But what we need is perhaps a second part of the green revolution to come in, which will give India a much more agricultural strength than what we have today. Government is giving highest priority to agriculture and allied sectors. 11th plan allocation has been considerably higher over the 10th plan allocation. 11th plan period is just about to end this year. So from next year we will have the 12th plan period, and that is where we will get more of allocation for agriculture, and rightly so. Branding India. Now, branding India, of course, the first element of branding is IT. Research and development capability spans a wide spectrum of industries, and the science and technology grows well above the global average. Here I find so many scientists around here, so many professors of basic sciences, engineering from India who have come here, who are teaching here, and to all those I would say that today's India's scientific progress, thanks to them. And also, well, we could still do better. We could still do more of investment in our R&D, in our S&T sector. And S&T is one area where we have identified in terms of our bilateral cooperation with Trinidad and Tobago. And some of the frontier areas of S&T, for example, space technology, where we have achieved self-sufficiency now. We have been not only conceiving our space satellites, but we are launching them. We are building them. We are launching them. We are launching them for the European satellites also on Indian soil. So these are some of the areas where we can. Few countries with expertise to conceptualize, design, and manufacture satellites and the capability to launch them into space. India has also targeted its R&D spend to 2% of GDP by 2010 under the 11th five-year plan. And these are some websites you may like to note, people who are interested in knowing further about it. Our High Commission website, scipos.org, then government website, india.gov.in, then IBEF, Indian Brand Equity Foundation.org, then DIP, Department of Industrial Promotion, .nic.in. These are some of the useful websites. But let me come back to a very point to ponder, and perhaps we can talk about it a little more, that this growth, is this an inclusive growth? We have built a slogan of inclusive growth. Inclusive growth meaning all sections of the society must be included in growth. But is it happening? This is something to be debated.